everybody to Human Accent, and we're just going to unpack a little bit about the economic environment and COVID and what's been going on. And I've got two guests with me. We've got Subesh Pillay. He joins us as Chief of Staff of the MEC for Economic Development, Agriculture and Environment for Gauteng. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
And then we've got our friend Gavin Schar. He joins us from Knowles, Husain and Lindsay Inc, a law firm where he's co-owner. Let's start with you, Subesh. You stated on one of your media posts, I think it was LinkedIn, and this is, I'm going to read it because it was very well written. It says this: ideological dogmatism and cognitive dissonance are different sides of the same coin, and both are equally dangerous propositions, especially at a time where there's no frames or templates to script responses to what is undeniably an unprecedented economic and social catastrophe, the likes of which has not been experienced for at least a century. So I found this statement quite profound. Okay, so what do you mean when you say by ideological dogmatism? I'll give you an example.
So I think if you just trace the narratives, economic narratives in our country, they've essentially been on two lines. So one is sort of a capitalist frame, and the other is sort of Marxist kind of communist frame. And what I'm really referring to is our inability to get out of the frame. Right? So we think everything we think about within the confines of this space. And just to give you an example, there's been a big debate about the nationalization of the South African Reserve Bank. But if you unpack that to ordinary South Africans, it actually means nothing to everybody. But just because the ideology that underpins nationalization is such a big talking point, we get fixated about nationalization. And we're not going beyond that frame to unpack how this which we're trying to do is going to impact the lives of all of the South Africans. And I think the problem I have with all of this is that at the end of the day, whatever we say and do, our yardstick, our measurement is the impact it has on society.
Yes.
And not which ideological frame wins the debate at any particular point in time. I'm saying it's a cognitive dissonance because it's a phrase I borrowed from psychologists. Say that in the face of overwhelming evidence about any particular subject, you remain fixated on your frame of mind and your thinking. In spite of everything that is before you, you refuse simply to listen to those things. And for me, the big problem with our economic debates has been this kind of two camps and nothing in the middle ground.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that more and more, I feel like the condense our sorts, we come together into a melting pot and say we have a problem that we need to deal with. Let's forget the frameworks that we come into it with.
Yes.
Let's understand the journey that we want to, or the destination we want to arrive at, and then redefine the journey of how we're going to get there.
So I like the way that you said we want to reframe, instead of coming with these two ideological camps and we're not willing to shift because we fixate, and having some sort of a middle body that could navigate between the two and find something different. I like that. So with that in mind, what do you believe economic recovery looks like in South Africa, especially from this point forward?
So just yesterday, the Minister of Finance announced what they call the emergency budgets. And a big takeaway is that the fiscal headspace of public sector money is diminishing. The ability for government to go and raise debt is diminishing quickly over time. And what that really means is that we need to find a more innovative way of bringing in private sector money into supporting some of the big government infrastructure projects. On Tuesday, the President announced a massive infrastructure build program. And one of the things that it does, it's almost a multiplier effect in the sense that firstly, you're injecting resources into the economy. Secondly, you're creating productive capacity into the economy. So if you look at the kind of projects that have been talked about, it's projects in the network industries, your utilities, electricity, water, telecommunications. It's investments in ports and transport infrastructure. So it's a kind of infrastructure that helps the economy to grow. If you contrast that to what our spending patterns has been over the past 10 to 15 years, there's a significant amount of money that goes into social spending. Now, as much as we must invest in social infrastructure, it doesn't give you a return it doesn't give you an ROI, return on investment, as much as would those productive investments which would yield. Right? So the first thing is to get the economy going, and you do that by creating this productive infrastructural assets. The question is how do we fund this? We know, as I just said, the ability for government to fund out of own revenues is constrained. So government has to look to the private sector. It doesn't have a choice. And there's been a big debate, again coming back to this ideological phrase about how much private sector investments do you want in government. So do you want to, for instance, nationalize the provision of electricity? Do you want to nationalize the provision of public services that must be provided for government? I'm saying that we need to get away from these things. We need to begin to say to the private sector, government has a particular problem that it needs to address. It needs resources and revenue to do that. Can we take the private sector reserves, the revenue reserves that the private sector sits on, and begin to invest them in the kind of productive infrastructure? And that way you grow your economy. And when you grow your economy, obviously the revenue streams for government begin to increase by way of taxes, both direct and indirect. And then government is able to fund some of the social infrastructure through its own revenue sources. Of course, that's kind of a linear graph approach to it. So the other things like corruption, which is a big issue in the country, it makes the assumption that we will have dealt with issues of corruption in the CP just to those kind of things. So I'm saying from just that linear approach, we need to find a convergence point between private sector capital and state or government priorities in terms of the kind of service delivery offers. So if you take, it's a big infrastructure project, but even if you think something as basic as government hospitals and the dispensing of medication from government hospitals, there's been pockets of efforts to try and get retailers to be a distribution point for medicine so that you don't have people queuing at public hospitals from 5 o'clock until 2 o'clock on a particular day. And we need more of those kind of projects that helps us merge and fuse this kind of private sector, public sector ability and demand for service.
If I think about like Albert Luthuli was a private partnership.
Absolutely.
And that worked very well.
Absolutely.
It worked very well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Suresh. I think that's great.
Sure.
Okay, so Gavin, based on just this macro discussion on the economy, when we talk about business rescue, what do we mean?
Well, business rescue in a legal sense is a process in terms of which an independent practitioner is appointed to a company to supervise that company, to assist it in restructuring some of its debts, and ultimately to prepare what's called a business rescue plan, to present that to affected persons, to have those people vote on that plan with a view to that plan being the method and the process by which the company is rescued as is provided for in the Act.
Okay, and at what point should a business be putting up their hand and saying, I need to be rescued?
The moment a company and its directors realize that they are what's defined as financially distressed, in the next 6 months it's unlikely that they're going to be able to pay all of their debts as and when those debts fall due, or it is likely that in the next 6 months they're going to be insolvent. It's at that stage that they should put their hands up and say, are we viable? Are we still a viable business? Do we think that a genuine business rescue process will enable us to turn this business around, to rescue the business? And if the answer to that is yes, and there are a number of questions that need to be asked and answered in terms of the Act, but if the answer is yes, it's at that stage that you should put your hand up.
Do you feel business rescue is a key factor in restoring economic viability?
Yes, what I'm suggesting is that business rescue is a viable process that seeks to achieve putting a business rescue practitioner into the business to supervise the business. It's a suspension, a temporary suspension of the rights of creditors vis-a-vis that company. And it has as its principal objective the production of a business rescue plan with a view to rescuing that company. So the sooner people realize that there may be a remedy
Yes.
for their distress, the sooner they're able to take advantage of the benefits that process offers them.